The time it happened, everything about it felt wrong from the start. Maple Grove was the kind of place where people walked their dogs before work and waved to neighbors over white fences. Nothing really happened there until it did. And when it did, it shattered every illusion that safety and status could protect you. It was just after 6 a.m., the sky still painted in early dawn gray, when sirens pierced the silence and 2 patrol cars tore through the neighborhood, converging on a single figure jogging alone. To the onlookers, it looked like an ambush, and in many ways, it was. Dr. Ayanna Brooks had no idea she was being watched. Her strides were steady, her breath controlled, her earbuds drowning out the world as she followed her usual morning route. It was the same path she'd run every day for the last 6 months, through the tree-lined streets that wrapped around the outer edge of the neighborhood. No one ever looked at her twice, until that morning, when someone did. A resident had called 911, describing a suspicious black woman moving deliberately through the neighborhood. She wasn't armed. She hadn't approached a house. She hadn't done anything wrong. But she looked like she was casing the place, the caller said. Wearing a hoodie, you know. Real shady. That was all it took. 2 police cruisers were dispatched. Backup was requested before they even arrived. Ayanna saw the flashing lights before she heard the screech of tires. 2 police cars blocked the intersection ahead of her, doors flying open, officers shouting conflicting commands. Hands where I can see them! Get on your knees! Turn around now! Her heart pounded, not from exertion but confusion. She stopped, stunned. One hand slowly lifted her hoodie off her head, the other held her ID pouch. What's going on? She asked, trying to stay calm. No one answered. One officer grabbed her wrist, twisting it behind her back. Another began rifling through her waist pouch without asking. Her hospital ID fell to the pavement, unread. She asked again, louder this time. What am I being stopped for? The officer closest to her muttered, You match a suspect description. That phrase again. The kind that strips you of identity, that renders degrees, accomplishments, and humanity invisible. Ayanna wasn't just any doctor. She was a level 1 trauma surgeon who had performed emergency procedures in war zones before joining St. Mary's General. She'd been the lead surgeon in multiple high-profile cases. She'd worked 12-hour shifts saving gunshot victims, accident survivors, children with internal injuries. Just hours earlier, she'd finished a double shift and had gone for a run to clear her head. Now she was being treated like a criminal. As the officers pressed her to the curb, one neighbor across the street opened their front door in a bathrobe, blinking in disbelief. Another stood frozen on their porch with a coffee mug halfway to their lips. The scene made no sense. No one moved to help. No one dared. And then, something shifted. An officer who had been standing off to the side picked up her ID from the ground. He turned it over, read the full badge, and blinked. Dr. Ayanna Brooks, MD, he said aloud, almost like he didn't believe it. His partner looked over his shoulder, frowning. That's not her real ID, he said quickly, almost defensively. It's a fake. Could be anyone's. But the younger officer's face had gone pale. He looked back at Ayanna, eyes narrowing as recognition slowly set in. I've seen her before, he said under his breath. I've seen her at St. Mary's. My wife was in a crash last month. She was in the OR that night. His partner's expression didn't change, but the grip on Ayanna's wrist did, just slightly. Like the realization of what they were doing was sinking in, but no one wanted to admit it out loud. One officer stepped away and made a call on his shoulder radio. We need verification on a Dr. Ayanna Brooks, trauma surgeon, hospital badge number 2467 seconds, passed like hours. The dispatcher came back with a calm, matter-of-fact confirmation. Dr. Brooks is registered. Attending surgeon, St. Mary's General. No warrants, no priors, no reason to detain. Silence fell. The officers backed up. One of them awkwardly reached to help her up. but Ayanna brushed his hand away. "So now what?" she said, her voice low and even. "Am I free to go? Or are we going to pretend this didn't happen?" The older officer cleared his throat. "Just trying to do our jobs, ma'am." But his voice lacked conviction. The younger one couldn't meet her eyes. A woman on her porch finally called out, "She jogs here every day. Everyone knows her." But no one had spoken up before. Now it was safe. Now that it was clear who Ayanna really was. But that wasn't the end of it. As she started to gather her things and step away, another vehicle appeared. A black, unmarked SUV pulled up, slower this time. The windows were tinted. It rolled to a stop directly in front of the police cruisers. A man stepped out, tall and serious-looking, wearing a black coat and holding a sleek folder. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't flash a badge. But the officers stiffened immediately. He walked straight past them, directly to Ayanna, and handed her the folder without a word. She opened it, glanced over the first page, and her expression changed. Not shocked, prepared, like she'd been expecting this moment. "Took you long enough," she said, tucking the folder under her arm. The officers were frozen. One stepped forward, demanding, "Who are you? What's going on?" But the man in the coat ignored him. Ayanna turned back to the officers. "Tell your captain this didn't start with your mistake," she said. "But it might end with it." She stepped into the black SUV without another word. The door shut. The vehicle pulled away. No one spoke for a full minute. Finally, one officer muttered, "She knew him." The younger one shook his head. She was expecting him. What no one understood in that moment, what none of them could possibly piece together, was that Ayanna wasn't just a surgeon. She was also a whistleblower. Months ago, she'd submitted a confidential report exposing corruption in a state-funded medical contract, one that involved powerful city officials, police procurement kickbacks, and falsified injury reports from certain officer-involved incidents. She had kept her identity secret. Until now. The black SUV wasn't there to protect her. It was there to control what happened next, and now she was gone. The body cam footage would mysteriously glitch. The dispatch records would be sealed. But a neighbor's phone had captured part of the stop. The video would be online within hours, and the public outrage would be nuclear. The department would scramble. Apologies would be drafted. A PR firm would be called. But none of it would matter, because Ayanna hadn't disappeared. She had gone underground with the folder. And inside that folder was the name of someone in power, someone who had just made her their enemy. She didn't run that morning to clear her mind. She ran to calculate how long it would take for them to make their move. The stop was never just about jogging. Ayanna Brooks had known for weeks that the net was tightening. When she handed over that first sealed file to the State Oversight Committee, she became a liability. But not just any liability, a high-profile black woman with a scalpel for a weapon and a paper trail that could dismantle an entire system. Her stop by police had been less a coincidence and more of a test balloon. A quiet warning wrapped in sirens and silence. But they didn't expect her to survive it with her dignity intact, let alone vanish hours later. The black SUV dropped her at a warehouse far from Maple Grove. On the outside, it looked abandoned, but inside, it buzzed with activity. Monitors lit up a long wall, displaying live feeds from city traffic cameras, police radio frequencies, and encrypted data channels. This was her backup plan, her safe house. Operated by a small but deadly team of former cybersecurity analysts, medical insiders, and a single retired journalist who owed her his life. Ayanna walked in like she belonged, dropped the folder on the table, and said flatly, "It's time." Inside the folder were photographs, emails, invoices, security footage, proof of how a major police department had been skimming funds from emergency response budgets for over 5 years. It started with fabricated injuries, medical exaggerations, false trauma reports filed through the ER where Ayanna worked. Police would arrive with minor scrapes, claim spinal damage, and file insurance forms worth tens of thousands. Doctors signed off thinking it was legitimate, until Ayanna looked closer. Patterns emerged. Same officers, same language, same questionable diagnostics. At first, she raised internal red flags. No one responded. Then she started digging. What she found linked a cluster of police officers, hospital administrators, and a powerful city official with the initials HK, a man who had made a career on being untouchable. She had recorded their meetings. She had photographed documents late at night. She even planted a micro-recorder in a conference room where payouts were discussed in code. It was all in that folder. But she wasn't just collecting evidence. She had been laying landmines. Every piece of data was duplicated, backed up on a military-grade server located in 3 countries. If anything happened to her, an email blast would go out with everything she'd gathered. But Ayanna wasn't content with exposure. She wanted confrontation. Hours later, in a dark downtown parking garage, she waited. She wore a blazer now, professional and sharp. Her breath was calm. Her eyes focused like they were in the middle of surgery. The SUV idled a few feet away, and then he arrived. Harold Kent, the deputy mayor of public safety, stepped out of a sleek black sedan, flanked by 2 men in coats. His hair was perfect. His smile was fake. "Dr. Brooks," he said smoothly, "you've been busy." She didn't flinch. "Busy saving lives while you bleed the city dry." One of his men moved closer, but she raised her hand. You don't want to do that. Not here. Not with everything about to go public." Kent's jaw twitched. "What do you want?" Ayanna smiled coldly. "I want your confession, or your resignation, preferably both." He laughed. "Do you really think threatening me in a garage changes anything?" She reached into her blazer and pulled out a phone. On the screen was a live countdown. "At 0, your face is going to be on every news outlet from here to DC, explaining how trauma claims for minor cuts turned into a $3.7 million scam. You'll be asked if you pressured doctors, if you bought silence, if you used city funds to launder hush money. I'll be interviewed. They'll play your voicemail. Let's keep this quiet, doctor." His smile cracked. "You're bluffing," he said, stepping forward. "No," she said. "I'm broadcasting." The countdown hit 10. Kent's security team tensed. Ayanna locked eyes with him. "You should kneel, Mr. Kent. It's not every day someone gets a second chance to do the right thing." The man froze. The phone buzzed. Then her earpiece clicked. "We're live." The warehouse team had initiated the protocol. 3 major news outlets were pinged. One had already started publishing. She could hear the reporters screaming questions in her head. Kent's phone rang. He answered with shaking fingers. "What?" His face turned ghost white. "No, I can fix this. No, she's lying." Ayanna held up her phone. His voice echoed back from it, recorded, mic'd, trapped. The security men backed off. 20 minutes later, Kent's resignation was live on national news. He cited personal health concerns. Ayanna knew better. She didn't wait to watch the coverage. She walked away while he stood frozen. But it wasn't over. The scandal triggered an internal investigation. Hospital administrators started singing. Doctors came forward. Nurses who were threatened with silence suddenly had power behind them. The state launched a criminal probe. 6 officers were suspended, 2 were indicted. The mayor called for community healing. But Ayanna wasn't done. She wanted justice, not just headlines. The 2 officers who had stopped her that morning, Jameson and Riley, were placed on administrative leave pending review. Riley, the younger one, sent an apology letter. Handwritten, sincere. Ayanna read it, didn't respond. Jameson, the older one, denied wrongdoing. He was caught lying during a departmental hearing. A video surfaced later, recorded by a neighbor, showing him gripping Ayana's wrist harder than necessary, smirking while calling her a runner type. That video went viral. His badge was pulled. Public pressure exploded. Then the biggest bombshell dropped. The anonymous caller who triggered the original stop? It was traced back to a city contractor who worked with the police department on body cam software, a man whose name also appeared on one of Ayana's internal lists. It hadn't been random. The call had been a setup, an attempt to intimidate her, to discredit her. If she had reacted differently, they would have spun it. If she'd gotten angry, they'd have claimed aggression. If she'd resisted, who knows how it would have ended. But Ayana had stayed calm and exposed the entire machine. On the one-year anniversary of the incident, Ayana stood on stage at a national medical conference. She wasn't there to speak about surgery. She spoke about power, about silence, about what it means when a system mistakes your brilliance for threat. The room was packed. Doctors, students, reporters, victims of police misconduct. She ended with a single line that echoed in the chamber. "The next time they stop someone who looks like me, they'll think twice, because I'm not the exception, I'm the beginning." The crowd stood. She walked off stage, blazer crisp, heels clicking on the polished floor, while flashes went off like gunfire. But in her heart, it wasn't about recognition. It was about momentum. She hadn't just survived a system rigged to break her, she cracked it open. The story went national, then global. Activists named laws after her. City councils started revising protocols. New policies were introduced requiring real-time oversight of civilian stops, mandatory de-escalation training, and third-party investigations. Ayana declined every offer for a book deal. She wasn't interested in telling the story again. She was interested in making sure no one had to. But there was one final moment. A letter arrived at her hospital office months later. No return address. Inside was a photograph. Black and white. It showed her jogging. The day of the stop. Taken from a distance. On the back, written in blue ink, "We see you. We're still watching." She stared at it for a long time. Then she set it on fire. She didn't flinch as the edges curled black and the flames swallowed the threat whole. Because what they didn't understand was this: they had already lost, and she was just getting started.